Well, hello, everybody, and welcome. We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. Start with an invocation, which we observe by a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Agent.
Here.
Flag.
Here.
Halliburton.
Here.
Willits.
Here.
Woodings. Here. All present.
Thank you. And next up, we have a request for approval, the minutes from our strategic planning session and regular day meeting of February 28th.
Madam Mayor, I move that we approve the city council minutes from strategic planning session and day meeting of February 28th, 2023.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Clerk, will you call the roll?
Flag.
Yes.
Halliburton.
Yes.
Willits.
Yes.
Woodings.
Yes.
Agent.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Thank you. And now we've got a couple items under special business. First, the appointment of Bernie Zimmerman to the Ethics Commission for a 4-year term. Bernie, you're with us tonight. Thank you so much for your service. After the motion, you're more than welcome to say a few words if you'd like, but really appreciate that you're willing to join the commission.
Madam Mayor, I ask unanimous consent for the appointment of Bernie Zimmerman to the Ethics Commission for a 4-year term ending May 2027.
Without objection. All right, it's official. Welcome. Did you want to say anything? Right. Thanks for being here.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I had the distinct privilege of working with Bernie for a few years in our master's program at Boise State. And Bernie's a counselor by training. He's been in this community for a very long time. I think that he's going to be a wonderful addition to our Ethics Commission. And I just really appreciate him stepping up into this role. It's really important. It's one of the only ethics commissions that I know of in the entire state of Idaho and the first of its kind. And it's really a critical function that our city has. So thank you.
Madam Mayor, I haven't had the chance to work with Bernie, but I did have a chance to look through your resume, and it was really impressive and really exciting to have somebody with so much experience that Council President Woodings mentioned on our Ethics Commission. I'm always amazed by community members who decide to step up and serve our city as volunteers in really, really great and interesting ways. And I think it's cool that we've got a group of students here tonight because we have all sorts of different commissions that people have the ability to serve on, to learn more about the city, to be able to help the city in a variety of different ways. So I'd encourage our students here who are here tonight to look for some of those opportunities, because sometimes there's actually student positions on some of those commissions. And so it's always great to see students in here and great to see people apply for these community positions.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Yes.
I have one additional motion regarding the agenda. I request that we move SUB 22-55 Easy Street subdivision and SUB 22-64 Kinsell Cove subdivision to the subdivision section of new business. The items were mistakenly listed as public hearings when the agenda was originally posted.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Clerk, will you call the roll?
Flag.
Yes.
Halliburton.
Yes.
Willits.
Yes.
Woodings.
Yes.
Agent.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Great. Thank you. I'll probably pick those up first so that I don't inadvertently pass over them. Next up, we have revised findings and conditions of approval for DRH 22-345. Says Josh.
Madam Mayor, I'm online.
Oh, hi there. Great.
Hi. Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. On January 31st, 2023, council denied the appeal of DRH 22-00345 and directed staff to draft additional conditions of approval for inclusion. The revised conditions, the appeal findings and reason statement are in your packet tonight, and we are requesting approval. With that, I would stand for any questions. Thank you.
Any questions for Josh? All right, no questions, Josh. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I have reviewed the revised findings and conditions of approval and move that we approve DR H22-345.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Clerk, will you call the roll?
Clegg,
Yes.
Halliburton,
Yes.
Willetts, Woodings,
Yes.
Agent,
Yes.
all in favor, motion carries.
Thank you. And next up, we have the annual comprehensive financial report. Welcome, Sabrina.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. My name is Sabrina Meredith, and I'm the controller here at the city. I'm here tonight to present to you our annual comprehensive financial report and the results of our annual financial statement audit for the year ending September 30th, 2022. Each year, the city is audited by an external accounting firm independent from the city. The fiscal year 22 audit was performed by Eide Bailey. The results of the audit is an unmodified opinion over both financial statements and federal awards. This means the audit was clean or free from material misstatements. During the audit, a significant deficiency was discovered in the financial statements. A significant deficiency is less severe than a material weakness. This is the result of expenses that were incurred in fiscal year 21, but were billed to a federal grant agency in fiscal year 22. The entry was not accrued into fiscal year 21 and was reported in the wrong year. These expenses are allowable to the grant and within the grant period of performance, so there was no finding in the audit of federal awards. GASB is the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, loves to issue new statements. In fiscal year 22, the city implemented GASB standard number 87. Implementation required the accounting team to coordinate with all departments across the city to gather a population of contracts or agreements that are leases when the city is a lessor or a lessee. These leases were reviewed to determine if they qualify to be accounted for under this standard. To account for the lease required a complex calculation to determine either a long-term receivable offset by a deferred inflow or a long-term liability offset by a right to use asset. Either calculation had a minimal impact to the statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance, or if you're outside of the governmental world, your income statement. You can find additional detail, including amortization schedules, in the footnotes of the ACFR, or Annual Comprehensive Financial Report. There will be a similar standard implemented in fiscal year 23 for subscription-based IT arrangements, or SBITAs. For the financial highlights, if upon your review of the financial statements, you will see a large increase in the pension liability due to market performance and an increase in long-term liabilities because of the new water renewal bond. These liability increases were offset by small increases in almost every asset category, resulting in minimal changes to total fund balance. The budget team at the city is working to enhance the in-year forecasting process with the goal of more proactively allocating surplus funds for strategic initiatives, which reduce the unassigned fund balance in fiscal year 22. Another thing you may have noticed is the investment loss. This is an unrealized loss and will not be realized because we plan to hold the investments to maturity. I stand before you today to ask if there are any questions on our fiscal year 22 audit or financial statements and request approval after that.
Madam Mayor, I just want to say thank you to Sabrina and her team for working with the auditors so well. One of the pieces of feedback that we received from the auditors is that working with the team at City of Boise is always a very professional experience. And they always are very appreciative for our financial controls and what we have in place. So I think that that's a reflection of our admin team and just their very high standards on taking care of our finances. So thank you.
Thank you.
And with that, I would move that we approve our FY22 annual comprehensive financial report.
Second.
We have a motion. We have a motion second. Sabrina, thank you. Clerk, will you call the roll?
Clegg,
Yes.
Halliburton,
Yes.
Willetts,
Yes.
Woodings,
Yes.
Agent,
Yes.
all in favor, motion carries.
Could someone please fix the computer screen? I'm not sure. We've now got news flashing on it. Great, thank you. Okay, we are going to move into the consent agenda. All items with an asterisk are considered to be routine by the council and will be enacted by one motion. There's no separate discussion on these items unless a council member or citizen so requests, in which case the item will be removed from the general order of business and considered in its normal sequence.
Madam Mayor, I move that we approve Madam Mayor, I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Clerk, will you call the roll?
Clegg,
Yes.
Halliburton,
Yes.
Willetts,
Yes.
Woodings,
Yes.
Agent,
Yes.
all in favor, motion carries.
Thanks. And now we'll move into first reading. We've got several ordinances on first reading.
Madam Mayor, I ask unanimous consent that all ordinances on first reading be read by number and title only and filed for the second reading calendar.
Without objection.
ORD 12-23, an ordinance amending Boise City Code Title I, Chapter 4, Section 2, entitled General Penalty, to update the infraction penalty enumerated therein to match the Idaho Code and providing an effective date. ORD 13-23, an ordinance amending Boise City Code Title 6, Chapter 16, entitled Loud Amplification Devices upon or within vehicles, amending the title of the chapter to Vehicle Amplified Sounds, amending Section 1 to refine the purpose and add the scope of the chapter, amending Section 2, subsection A, and adding new subsection B that sets forth the prohibited vehicular amplified sound, amending Section 3 to clarify the exemptions to the prohibitions, repealing Section 4 and 5, and renumbering the subsequent provisions accordingly, amending the penalty provisions, approving a summary of the ordinance, and providing an effective date. ORD 14-23, an ordinance amending Boise City Code Title 6, Chapter 17, excessive exhaust and muffler noise, amending the scope of the chapter, amending and replacing certain definitions contained within the chapter, repealing Title 6, Chapter 17, Sections 5 and 9, and renumbering the subsequent provisions accordingly, amending existing muffler exhaust requirements and prohibitions, and adding a new prohibition subsection, amending the penalty provisions of the chapter to provide for a misdemeanor penalty upon subsequent violations of this chapter within a year, approving a summary of the ordinance and providing an effective date. ORD 15-23, an ordinance CAR 22-00029 for property located at 9181 South Federal Way, annexing 12.89 acres of certain lands and territories situated in Ada County, Idaho, adjacent and contiguous to the corporate limits of the city of Boise City, establishing and determining the land use classification of said 12.89 acres as M-1D, light industrial with design review, setting forth a reasoned statement in support of such annexation and zone change, directing the city engineer to lodge and file a legal description and map for said annexed lands and territory, providing that copies of this ordinance shall be filed with the Ada County Auditor, the Ada County Treasurer, the Ada County Assessor, the Ada County Recorder, and the Idaho State Tax Commission, providing that a copy of said legal description and map of said annexed lands and territory be recorded with the Ada County Recorder and filed with the Ada County Assessor and the Idaho State Tax Commission as required by law, and providing an effective date.
Well, thank you. That was a lot. All right, second reading. Got two. or one?
I ask unanimous consent that all ordinances on the second reading calendar be read by number and title only and filed for the third reading calendar.
Without objection.
ORD 11-23 and ordinance CAR 22-00018 for property located at 800 West State Street, amending zoning classifications of the city of Boise City to change the classification of real property, particularly described in section 1 of this ordinance and adjacent rights of way from L-OD Limited Office with Design Review to C-5DD/DA Central Business with Downtown Design Review and Development Agreement Zone, setting forth a reasoned statement in support of such zone change and providing an effective date.
Thank you. And now third reading.
Madam Mayor, I move that further reading of ORD 9-23 and 10-23 be dispensed with and the record reflect they have been read a third time in full.
Second.
We have a motion, a second, clerk?
Clegg,
Yes.
Halliburton,
Yes.
Willetts,
I saw yes on the council members' lips. I think, will you test your audio again? Councilmember Willetts? Yeah, no, I think you've got the wrong audio plugged in because you look unmuted, but we can't hear you.
Woodings,
Oh, now we can hear you. Great. Willets was yes.
Woodings,
Yes.
Bajent,
Yes.
all in favor, motion carries. ORD 9-23, an ordinance repealing and replacing Boise City Code Title 9, Chapter 13, Green Construction Code of Boise City by adopting the 2018 International Green Construction Code as amended to be known as the Green Construction Code of Boise City, establishing voluntary regulations, increasing the sustainability components of buildings and sites. Sites requiring compliance with the Boise City Green Construction for city-owned projects, approving a summary of the ordinance and providing an effective date. ORD 10-23, an ordinance amending Boise City Code Title 5, Chapter 12, Section 35 to amend control valve location requirements, amending Title 5, Chapter 12, Section 37 to amend floor control assemblies, amending Title 5, Chapter 12, Section 60 and 61 to amend requirements for firefighter air replenishing systems and providing an effective date.
Madam Mayor, I
Yes.
move that ORD 9-23 and 10-23 be approved.
Second.
We have a motion, a second, clerk?
Clegg,
Yes.
Halliburton,
Yes.
Willetts,
Yes.
Woodings,
Yes.
Bajent,
Yes.
all in favor, motion carries.
Thank you. And now we'll move on to subdivisions. So the first one we're going to pick up is Easy Street subdivision, SUB 22-55. This is one of those ones that was moved by motion from the public hearings to the subdivision section. We've got Sabrina. Welcome, Sabrina. The applicant, Ben Simple. I don't see you, Ben, so I imagine you're online. Do we have Sina, the neighborhood association, present tonight? We don't expect to, but wanted to check. Nobody is scheduled to testify. Is anybody in this room planning on testifying on this one? All right, Sabrina, go ahead and then we'll see if the applicant is in agreement with the terms and conditions of the staff report.
Okay. Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council. The item before you is a request for a preliminary plat for a residential subdivision comprised of 1 common and 5 buildable lots on 0.64 acres located at 478 and 506 West Highland Street in an R1C zone. The subject property is located within a half-mile radius of the Community Activity Center at the intersection of Boise and Broadway Avenues, and the surrounding neighborhood is comprised of a mix of single-family, duplex, multifamily, and commercial uses. There are 2 existing homes, which the applicant proposes to retain, and 3 additional homes are proposed in the northern portion of the site. Access to the subdivision will be provided by a 20-foot wide common driveway from Highland Street. The applicant proposes to replace the existing attached sidewalk along Highland Street with detached sidewalk and an 8-foot wide landscape buffer containing street trees. Sidewalks are also proposed along the southern and western edges of the common driveway in order to provide pedestrian connectivity within the development. Since the Planning and Zoning Commission hearing, the applicant has provided a revised landscape plan and tree mitigation plan demonstrating that all healthy, desirable trees on site that will be removed will be mitigated through the planting of new trees on site. Public opposition was received from the Neighborhood Association and 2 members of the public, and that's outlined in your packets and summarized on this slide here. 1 member of the public did also speak in favor of the project as shown on the slide. Ultimately, the commission found that the proposal complied with all required findings. In conclusion, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommends approval of the preliminary plat, and I would be happy to stand for any questions.
Any questions for Sabrina? Yes.
Thank you, Sabrina. I really appreciate that the developer is doing a detached sidewalk in front of these two lots. Trying to figure out if the lot next door does or does not. I know there's a detached sidewalk further east. So I'm just trying to figure out, will it be consistent?
Madam Mayor, council member, the adjacent properties do have a attached sidewalk currently. So the applicant is proposing detached that would then connect back down to the attached on either side.
So they'll connect this way. Just seems silly that we can't do all of it at once, but I understand. Anyway, it's good to get this section. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Ben, are you online?
Hi, Madam Mayor, members of City Council. I am online. Thank you to Sabrina for her presentation. I don't have a whole lot to add. We are in agreement with the conditions of approval in the staff report. And I would stand for any additional questions.
Thank you. I don't see any questions here. I want to confirm that nobody is here to testify on this. All right, we'll go ahead and close this item.
Madam Mayor, I move that we approve Easy Street subdivision SUB 22-55, Boise City preliminary plat, Rodney Evans and Partners at 478 and 506 West Highland Street.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Clerk, will you call the roll?
Clegg,
Yes.
Halliburton,
Yes.
Willetts,
Yes.
Woodings,
Yes.
Bajent,
Yes.
all in favor, motion carries.
Thank you. And Sabrina's up again. We'll move on to Kinsel Cove subdivision, SUB 2264. And let me just double check. So is Catherine Sewell? Yeah. Hi there. Great. You're here in person. Eric Berg is not here. If anybody from CENA arrives for this one, just let me know. And we don't intend to, is anybody in this room planning on testifying on this? I don't have anybody signed up in advance. All right. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, members of the council, this next item is a request for a preliminary plat for a residential subdivision comprised of 1 common and 4 buildable lots on 0.58 acres located at 1022 West Targhee Street in an R1C zone. The subject property is located approximately 250 feet west of the intersection of Targhee Street and Broadway Avenue, and the surrounding neighborhood is comprised of a mix of single-family homes, duplexes, and townhomes, with commercial uses clustered along Broadway Avenue to the east. There is one existing home and several associated accessory structures on the site, which the applicant proposes to remove in order to accommodate the proposed development. The applicant proposes to construct 4 detached single-family homes on the site, which will be accessed by a 20-foot common driveway from Targhee Street. There is existing curb and gutter along the site's frontage on Targhee, and the applicant proposes to install a 5-foot attached sidewalk. While detached sidewalks are generally preferred, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval of the applicant's proposal due to unique features of the site, including the narrow right-of-way width and limited opportunities for future connectivity. The applicant also proposed a sidewalk along the northern and eastern edges of the common driveway in order to provide pedestrian connectivity within the development. The landscape plan submitted by the applicant indicates that all healthy desirable trees which will be removed from the site will be mitigated through the planting of new trees. In conclusion, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommends approval of the plat, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Sabrina? All right. I'll just check in with the applicant then. Are you in agreement with the terms and conditions? Great. For the record, the answer from Catherine Sewell was yes. I'm going to confirm that nobody is here to testify on this item. All right. With that, I'm going to go ahead and close this one. Thanks, Sabrina.
Madam Mayor, I move that we approve Kinsel Cove subdivision SUB 22-64, Boise City preliminary plat at 1022 West Targhee Street.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Clerk?
Mary, or sorry,
Excuse me.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, go ahead. Sorry.
Mary's my child, not Madam Mayor. I just wanted to note that these are 2 really great little infill subdivisions that we've seen, 2 in a row, and thank the developers for doing these. I mean, I know that it doesn't seem like a big deal, but when we're taking something that's had 1, maybe 2 homes on a large lot that are really close to large roadways and a lot of commercial opportunities and making those into several more homes for families, I think that's really impactful. So thank you.
Thank you. Clerk, will you call the roll?
Clegg,
Yes.
Halliburton,
Yes.
Willetts,
Yes.
Woodings,
Yes.
Bajent,
Yes.
all in favor, motion carries.
All right, and now we'll head back to the regular order. Abracadabra subdivision, SUB 22-72. Ben Semple, applicant, I imagine, is still in line. Hello, Delaney. Is anybody here planning on testifying on this one? Nope. All right. Let's go ahead and get started.
Great, thank you. Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council. Before you is a request for a residential subdivision. The project site is located at 915 North Shamrock Street in an R1C zone. The applicant has previously received approval of a PUD and preliminary plat that was originally comprised of 23 single-family dwellings and 3 common lots. However, since that original approval, 1 acre of the subject property has been split and dedicated for a future park site. With the dedication of the park, the residential plan development and subdivision is now comprised of fewer residential units and lots. On February 6, 2023, the Planning and Zoning Commission unanimously approved via consent the modification to the PUD and recommended approval for the revised preliminary plat before you. The Abracadabra sub number 2 is now comprised of 16 buildable and 1 common lot. The site will be accessed via Shamrock Street through a public street, which will provide future connectivity to the adjacent parcel on the west. With this modification, the subdivision in this project will now be served with a 1 acre park and future pathway directly to the south. In conclusion, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval, and I could stand for any questions.
Any questions for Delaney? All right, thank you. Ben Semple, are you still with us?
Hi, Madam Mayor, members of City Council. I am still here. We are in agreement with the conditions of approval for the project. Really excited to have been able to work with the Boise City Parks Department in identifying this area and working with the developer to get the park property split off and dedicated over to the city. I think it's a huge win for everybody. I know during the original application review and approval at City Council, there was some discussions about how to get some lots that fronted more on a park here. So it was good to see that was able to come to fruition. Other than that, I would stand for any additional questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. And just for the record, I want to confirm that the Neighborhood Association from West Boise is not here. And nobody in the audience or online is here to testify. All right. With that, I'll close this hearing.
Madam Mayor, I move that we approve Abracadabra subdivision number 2, SUB 22-72, Boise City preliminary plat at 915 North Shamrock Street.
Second.
Your motions.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank the developer for being willing to redesign this and divest a part of it to the city for a park site. This is such an important site for park. It's going to serve a lot of residents that currently don't have good access, and really appreciate the willingness to work hard with the city to make this work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
can you hear me okay?
Yep.
I'd like to echo Councilwoman Clegg's comments. This is going to be fantastic. I know this area really well. In fact, when we approved the park site, I've driven down there quite a bit just to take a look at it. And I think for those who live near, it's going to be fantastic, but also having the park adjacent to this development is really special. And I'd like to echo my thanks to the developer for not only an excellent infill development, but also the opportunity to provide more Boiseans an opportunity to have a park in their neighborhood in West Boise. So thank you.
Any further comments? All right, clerk, will you call the roll?
Clegg,
Yes.
Halliburton,
Yes.
Willetts,
Yes.
Woodings,
Yes.
Bajent,
Yes.
all in favor, motion carries.
Yes.
And next up, SOS 2229. Vacation of a plat note. Jesse, welcome for the city. Is Jeffrey Cartwright here? Wonderful, great. Just let us know if you agree and we can go from there. The Neighborhood Association, again, South Boise, Eric Berg has not been here tonight. Is anybody here to testify on this one? Alrighty, thanks. Go ahead, Jesse.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. Item before you today is SOS 22-29, a request to vacate a plat note for the rear setback on Lot 9 of the London Square subdivision located on 0.24 acres at 210 Howe Court in the R1C zone. London Square subdivision was recorded in 1978 with a plat note defining the setbacks for the subdivision with the rear setback at 15 feet. While this 15-foot setback is typical for the R1C zone, the development code allows for a reduced rear yard setback of 9 feet for open post patio shade covers, pergolas, or similar structures under 250 feet in area and less than 15 feet in height, which are attached to the home. As such, the applicant is requesting to vacate the plat note to construct an attached covered rear patio on the east side of the home, located approximately 11.5 feet from the rear property line as allowed by the development code. And in conclusion, the planning team recommends approval of SOS 2229, and I will happily answer any questions.
Any questions for Jesse? All right, thanks. And sir, if you are in agreement with terms and conditions of the report, we can take that from you. You are. All right, the record will reflect that. Just to confirm, nobody is here to testify on this. And with that, I'll close this matter.
Madam Mayor, I move that we approve SOS 22-29, Boise City vacation of plat note for Jeffrey Cartwright at 210 West Howe Court.
Second.
We have a motion and a second discussion. Claire?
Clegg,
Yes.
Halliburton,
Yes.
Willetts,
Yes.
Woodings,
Yes.
Agent,
Yes.
all in favor, motion carries.
Thank you. And our last subdivision is Cherokee, maybe subdivision SUB 2256. Jesse again, Ben's on the phone. We do not expect Nina to be here. Just let me know if that's not the case. Anybody here to testify on this one? Alrighty, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and council members. The item before you is SUB 2256, a request to approve a preliminary plat for Cherokee subdivision with 2 buildable lots on 0.28 acres in the R3 HD zone located at 1423 Franklin Street. The applicant proposes to convert the existing historic structure on the corner lot back into a residential unit and add another single-family home. On November 7th, the Planning and Zoning Commission approved the association PUD for reduced internal setbacks and recommended approval on the subdivision. The existing structure does not meet the street side setbacks and is considered legal non-conforming. The applicant does not propose any exterior modifications, and the applicant also plans to utilize the existing driveway off of 15th Street instead of the alley. As the building is contributing and the garage was constructed with direct access onto 15th Street, the Planning and Zoning Commission found this to be appropriate. The newly constructed lot will take vehicular access from the alley, however. There's an existing detached sidewalk adjacent to the development, as well as existing street trees, which the applicant proposes to retain. And the property is located in a historic district with a design review overlay. Any modification to the existing structure or any new structure proposed will be reviewed for design and compatibility. In conclusion, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommend approval of SUB 2256, and I'm happy to answer questions.
Any questions?
And Mayor?
Yep.
Quick question. The driveway that's shown on this is where I think there is a garage. Is that garage going to be demolished or moved?
Madam Mayor, members of the council, they're planning to keep the existing garage in its place. And as it
okay.
is a contributing structure, the
Okay.
planning and zoning team found that to be appropriate.
Great. I just want to make sure. It's a great building, both the garage and the building. So good to hear.
All right. Ben, are you still with us?
Madam Mayor, yes, I am. I thank Jesse for her presentation of the project. We are in agreement with the conditions of approval in the staff report. The owner has obtained the certificate of appropriateness for the existing home. If you've driven by there recently, you've seen that it was painted, but there's been no changes to the architectural condition. I think they've replaced a couple windows, all of that compliant with that certificate of appropriateness. The new lot to be constructed, we're exploring trying to find a candidate for relocation of an existing home. That hasn't panned out yet, but we have to wait to get the lot established before we really, get this approval before we are really comfortable digging in any further on that. Regardless, anything, whether it's a new build or a relocated structure on that lot, it'll go through a separate certificate of appropriateness application process as well. And so we look forward to that coming to fruition sometime soon. Other than that, I'd stand for any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? All right. I just want to confirm that Nina is not here. That nobody here is intending to testify on this. All right, with that, we'll close this one.
Madam Mayor, I move that we approve Cherokee subdivision, SUB 22-56, Rodney Evans and Partners at 1423 Franklin Street.
Second.
We have a motion, a second discussion.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, this is a really cool building. I'm glad to see that it's being preserved. And I'm also glad to see that we may be getting rid of a surface parking lot on the north end, which is always a great idea. I look forward to seeing if there's an opportunity to relocate a house here. I think that those home relocations have really made this particular area of the north end interesting and vibrant. So that would be a really great opportunity. And I thank the property owners for bringing this to us.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
like Council President Woodings, I'm excited to see the surface parking lot go away and a building, a residential building back in its place. I did a quick survey 3 or 4 years ago, and we've lost about 30 residential units in this neighborhood to surface parking lots. And so everything we can do to get a few of those back is a move in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Clerk, will you call the roll?
Clegg. Halliburton.
Yes.
Willetts.
Yes.
Woodings.
Yes.
Bajent.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
All right, now we'll move to public hearings. First up, we have CR 22-36 with Sabrina again. Scott Michael or Michael Rhea is the applicant. Is the applicant here? Perhaps online. We don't expect Eric Berg from CENA to be here, and we didn't have any public sign up in advance. Is that still the case? All right, go ahead.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, the item before you is a request to annex approximately 4.16 acres located at 7050 South Federal Way with a zoning designation of M1D. The site is located approximately 0.15 miles south of the intersection of Federal Way and Gowan Road, which is designated as a regional activity center. The subject parcel is within the city's area of impact and abuts city limits to the south, east, and west. The surrounding area is primarily comprised of commercial and industrial developments with vacant land owned by the Idaho Department of Lands located to the north and northeast. Public agencies have confirmed that services are available to or already provided to the site. The Planning and Zoning Commission found the proposed M1D zone to be the most appropriate for the site as the land use map designates the site as industrial and there is existing M1 zoning adjacent to the west. The proposal is consistent with the comprehensive plan, which encourages maintaining a sufficient supply of land for industrial uses and developing land within the airport influence area B with non-residential uses. Following annexation, the applicant intends to construct an indoor agricultural operation that will utilize sustainable techniques to cultivate produce and fish. The proposed use would be an allowed use in the M1D zone and will be subject to design review prior to the submittal of building permits. In conclusion, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommends approval of the annexation, and I will stand for any questions.
Any questions for Sabrina? Great. It's great to see additional industrial land being proposed for development. Oh, there's the applicant. Scott, welcome. If we don't have anybody here to testify, is there anything you'd like to add to the report?
No, I guess simply thanking Sabrina and team for the work to help move through this annexation process, and I look forward to the next step of design review and approval.
Excellent. Any questions for the applicant?
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
I think this is really cool. And I guess maybe I'll ask for a point of personal privilege just to learn a little bit more about what's going to happen here, because it seems like a really awesome way to use a building. So I don't know if you have any extra information as far as how it's going to be used.
Scott, are you
Is that
willing?
question directed to me? I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry. It's
Yeah.
hard to tell because I
Yeah,
don't know.
no problem. Yeah, as Sabrina explained, the intention is to create what's called a controlled environment agriculture facility, which will produce both fish and vegetables in a sustainable manner. And by sustainable means very, very low water use, as well as not any use of fertilizers in order to create that produce. And it would be for consumption by the local Boise community with the volumes that are being that the site would be capable of. It's kind of really, frankly, the scale is sort of a pilot. To be honest, it's almost an R&D facility. To be financially viable, it will require a full scale up, but several years down the road.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, I think it's such a great use for an area of town and an innovative use for a space in a building. So I'm excited to see how this builds out.
Thank you for the comments.
Any questions? All right, I'll go ahead and open this to the public. Want to confirm that nobody's online to testify?
Madam Mayor, I have no one with their hand raised.
Okay, all right. Are there further questions for staff or the applicant? I'm going to go ahead and close this public hearing.
Madam Mayor, I move that we approve CAR 22-36 Raya LLC at 7050 South Federal Way, annexation of approximately 4.16 acres with a zoning designation of M1D.
Second.
We have a motion and a second discussion.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
thank you, Councilman President Pro Tem Halliburton, for asking that question. And thank you to the applicant for bringing this forward. I've been advocating for industrial use out in this area for a long time. We've mostly gotten warehousing and distribution. And this kind of production is so exciting because it's so unique, but also shows the possibilities of what could happen out here. So really excited about this.
Any further discussion? I agree. I hope this proof of concept facility demonstrates that this works and that we can see a more local food production in this way on some of our ag lands. And I love the fact that now in airport area of impact lands, it sounds like we're going to have some fish, some vegetables, and we've got some gelato nearby too. So a whole meal deal underneath the airport skies. So clerk, will you call the roll?
Clegg,
Yes.
Halliburton.
Yes.
Willets,
Yes.
Woodings,
Yes.
Bajent.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Thank you. And next up, Sabrina again. We've got CAR 22-31. The applicant, Georgia Meacham. Georgia, are you with us here in person or online?
Madam Mayor, online.
Wonderful.
Yes,
Well,
I'm here.
great. Welcome, Georgia. Oh, now I can see you.
Thank you.
Great. And then it's Depot Bench Neighborhood Association. We don't expect them. Is somebody here from the Depot Bench with us or online? And nobody signed up to testify. Is that the case still? All right. Well, we'll start with staff and then see if Georgia has anything to add.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, this next item is a request to rezone approximately 0.29 acres located at 1 and 2 South Mesa Vista Drive and 145 Westover Lane from R2 to R1C. In 2013, a property line adjustment between the subject parcels and the adjacent parcels to the north was approved. This approval caused the subject parcels to be split zoned, with the northern portions of the lot zoned R2 and the remainder of the lot zoned as R1C. The applicant now requests to rezone the R2 portions of the parcel to R1C to provide consistent zoning. The Planning and Zoning Commission found that the requested rezone to R1C complies with the code requirements and is compatible with the compact and mixed-use land use designations on the lots. The commission found that the rezone is in the best interest of the public, as it will allow the northern portion of the properties to conform to the predominant zoning of the lots while maintaining compatibility with the surrounding residential uses. In conclusion, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommends approval of the rezone, and I'll stand for any questions.
Are there questions for Sabrina?
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Sabrina, I know that the lots to the north are probably expected to redevelop at some point. Does this rezone impact the potential redevelopment of those lots in any way?
Madam Mayor, council members, no, it doesn't. The setbacks are the same in the R1C and R2, so it wouldn't affect those northern lots.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Anything further? Well, Georgia, do you have anything you'd like to add?
I would just like to thank Sabrina and the staff. They were fantastic. It was a lot of work, but I appreciate their guidance and they did a great job.
Oh, thank you. very much. Any questions for the applicant? Nope. All right. I just want to confirm that there's not a neighborhood association here to testify. And that no one from the public is here to testify. Any further questions? Okay, I'll go ahead and close this hearing too.
Madam Mayor, I move that we approve CAR 22-31, 1 and 2 South Mesa Vista Drive and 145 Westover Lane, rezone of approximately 0.29 acres from R2 to R1C.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
just an observation that the Boise City Council appears to be about to downzone something.
Clerk, will you call the roll?
Clegg,
Yes.
Halliburton.
Yes.
Willetts. Yes. Woodings,
Yes.
Agent,
Yes.
all in favor, motion carries.
And next up, the final item of the evening, CAR 22-11. We've got David Mosier here to present for staff. Nicolette Womack. Oh, sorry. Gosh, sorry about that. And then the Neighborhood Association, John Mooney, Gary Vesey. And then we expect that there will be public signed up, but I don't have any names in advance. Is anybody here for this one? If you're online and you're planning on testifying, just go ahead and raise your Zoom hand and we'll get to you. And with that, I had asked David to start.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, members of the council. The applicant is requesting to annex 3.2 acre site with an R2D DA zone located at 6776 East Warm Springs Avenue and a preliminary plat for a residential subdivision comprised of 33 buildable lots and 3 common lots. As you can see from the aerial photograph, the surrounding area is comprised of residential neighborhood containing detached single-family houses to the north, south, and east. Single-family residential homes are adjacent to the west across Warm Springs Avenue and zoned R2. A large wildlife corridor abuts the property to the north and connects the undeveloped foothills to the east with the Boise River. This application was initially heard before the Planning and Zoning Commission on August 1st, 2022 and denied. The applicant requested reconsideration and proposed substantial changes to the project to address the commission's concerns. As such, it was heard again by the commission on January 9th, 2023 and approved. In summary, as seen on the slide, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval since the annexation is consistent and compatible with the development code. The proposed R2 zone is supported by the commercial land use designation of the comprehensive plan. In addition, it complies all the required findings as per code. It is also surrounded on 4 sides by Boise city limits. Finally, the proposed DA is requested and required to tie this development to the Harris Ranch Wildlife Mitigation Plan and Association. The development consists of 33 attached 2- and 3-story townhouses. In summary, the applicant has made substantial changes from its original design to the project, which includes those changes, reducing the density of 33 units for a project density of 10.3 units per acre, and providing direct public street connection to Warm Spring Avenue, increasing the open space of the project and enhancing Warm Springs Avenue street frontage. Basically, the project design includes a public street which loops through the subject property with direct public street connection to Warm Springs. The right-of-way width for the public street is proposed at 27-foot street wide or 27 wide street section and allows for parking on one side. In addition, a 5-foot detached sidewalk with landscape buffer is proposed along Whitten Avenue, Narrow Street, and Bryan Avenue within the development. Several neighbors and the Barber Valley Neighborhood Association did express concerns with the original project design in terms of its access to Warm Springs Avenue, compatibility, and traffic. These concerns have been addressed with the proposed changes. In particular, 2 of the concerns have been addressed with the public street roadway connection to Warm Springs Avenue. Finally, the Neighborhood Association is requesting specific street improvements to Warm Springs Avenue, which include curb gutter, a large landscape buffer with 2 rows of trees, and a 10-foot wide path. This is the proposed landscape plan for the project, and it shows the draft version of the street improvements along Warm Springs Avenue, along with the landscaping for the site. The applicant is proposing a 10-foot wide 10-foot wide pathway along the street. However, due to site constraints such as underground utilities adjacent to the roadway and overhead power lines, the proposed landscaping along the roadway has been impacted. However, there is a condition of approval that was included with the PUD and the subdivision that requires that the planning staff, the highway district, and the applicant to review these issues and find a design solution for the street improvements that work with the site prior to final plat approval. As such, City Council will see this again at the final plat application. Please note that the PUD was not appealed and only the annexation and preliminary plat are before council tonight. The Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval of the annexation CR 22-00011 and SUB 22-0035 since they comply with all the required findings as per the development code. Thank you.
Any questions for David?
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
David, really excited to see the pathway here. I wonder if there was any discussion of making it a 12-foot wide pathway, which is closer to the current standard. I know we thought 10-foot was going to be enough, but we found really that 12-foot is better. Also occurs to me that that could move the trees further closer to the roadway and out of the line of the overhead wires and maybe allow for bigger trees.
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Clegg, a discussion of a 12-foot wide path was not discussed with this, although I think there might be room to achieve it.
So you mentioned that there will be further work at design review. So I guess I just, as this goes forward, depending on what the discussion is tonight, maybe take that to them.
Will do.
Anything further?
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
David, there's while this application was pending, ACHD reclassified this portion of Warm Springs, and that affected the conversation with the neighborhood and others about street access off of Warm Springs in some way that I couldn't quite suss out of the packet. So could you spend maybe like 4 sentences explaining how that classification change affected the plan here?
Sure. Madam Mayor, Council Member Bajent, the issue is that initially Warm Springs in this section was classified as an arterial roadway, and I believe highway district policy doesn't allow for a direct or requires the minimization of street access onto arterial roadways. There was a lot of discussion with planning staff and the neighborhood to the highway district, and they reconsidered this and reclassified as a collector, which would allow that additional street connection to go through and meet their policy.
I see. Thank you.
All right. We will hear from the applicant.
Mayor, council members, Nicolette Womack with Kimley Horn. Just gonna move this up. The address is 1100 West Idaho Street, number 210, Boise, Idaho 83702. Thank you for having us tonight. Shown here is the developer on the property, Mark Russell, our civil engineer, Abby, landscape architect, myself as the planner, Kelly is our engineer here tonight, and Ian with Pivot North is the architect. So again, we're requesting that annexation rezone development agreement and preliminary plat, and the PUD was approved by P&Z. Just super high level. We have a lot of slides in here, but I think we can hit them a lot quicker. We originally had our pre-application back in February of 2022. We held that neighborhood meeting in April, and then we submitted our application in April of 2022. We had that first P&Z hearing in August, and instead of moving forward to council at that time, we decided to go back to the drawing board, look at the plans in more detail, and take that feedback into consideration. So we had reconsideration approved in September. ACHD again reclassified Warm Springs, giving us the ability to take access on Warm Springs in November, and then we had a P&Z hearing in January. So it's been a long road. You know where we are, so I won't hit this slide. In general, we're filling in a county enclave with R2D DA zoning, similar to the property on the west side of Warm Springs. Just for common knowledge, these are the subdivision names in the area. Again, this site has a lot of opportunities and constraints. We're completing a road network with changing policies and requirements throughout the process. We're completing the pedestrian network. We're honoring our WUI setbacks. We're fronting our homes on Warm Springs, and we're trying to honor the perimeter setbacks with the adjacent subdivisions where possible. This again is the original submission. So this is where we did not have the Warm Springs access at that time. We were at 39 units and now we're down to 33 single family attached units. High level, we have 2 access points, one on Warm Springs, one on Bryan Ave. We are connecting to the Homestead Trail. There is a little bit of a small disconnect with the neighborhood association to the east. So we'll continue to work with everyone to resolve that connection. And we are providing that 10-foot pathway along Warm Springs. There are regional connectivity opportunities. So there are rapid flashing beacons in ACHG's work plan shown at Maynard and Skybar in the area. So you can cross Warm Springs to get to the Greenbelt. We do provide adequate open space and increased amenities. Parking was an item that came up before. So high level, we're required to provide 2 per unit. We're actually now providing 3.6 per unit. So I think we're in great shape on parking. We have increased to 3 stories on the north and west side, furthest away from all properties, adjacent properties, and 2 stories adjacent to the other properties. So here you can see just how far away we really are from everyone adjacent to us. High level, this is our 2-plex units, 3-plex units, and 5-plex units. And again, since the reconsideration, we have provided that direct access to Warm Springs. We've added 20-foot deep driveway aprons to avoid guest parking blocking sidewalks. We have provided a continuous network of detached sidewalks. We've reduced our unit count to 33 units. We've increased setbacks, open space, amenities, landscaping, added that 10-foot sidewalk on Warm Springs. And that's resulted in an overall reduction in hardscaping materials. We're happy to talk through the Warm Springs treatment in more detail, and we are comfortable with the conditions as written. We will take questions or address it in rebuttal if needs be. And we'll stand for your approval.
Thanks. Any questions?
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Thanks, Nicolette. Appreciate your presentation. The trees along Warm Springs are being shown on your property. Is there any opportunity to move them into the right of way so that you could potentially get a bigger tree in those spots?
Yes, happy to address that question, Mayor and council members. So this is the existing treatment of Warm Springs today. So because of those large power lines, most properties have only been able to locate their trees on the other side of the power lines. They're also facing a similar issue that we are, where, and I'll show you here, there's underground telecom and gas facilities in that area between our new curb and our new sidewalk. So our sidewalk basically follows our sidewalk basically follows the property line as shown in that darker typical property line right there. And then you can see in orange our underground telecom, in yellow our gas, and in pink, just to keep it exciting, that one goes straight. And so we're trying to work between all those things. We're exploring relocation of utilities. We're talking with our landscape architects about getting new trees that will live there and not damage utilities that affect everyone in the neighborhood.
Appreciate you looking at it. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Thanks. Any other questions? All right. We will now hear from Gary Vesey with the Neighborhood Association. Welcome.
Madam Mayor and council members, good evening. My name is Gary Vesey, 4150 Macbeth Avenue here in Boise. I'm Secretary of BB&A. Thanks in advance for considering our position tonight. This has been a long haul and a small but important infill project that is not encumbered by SPO1 or SPO2. We first met with the developer 15 months ago, and it has been an active engagement since then. Stating our position up front, BB&A supports the rezoning and the annexation applications and recommends approval as expressed at the January 9th P&Z hearing. However, despite our previous support of the preliminary subdivision map, we no longer support its approval. We recommend you send it back to the applicant with strong direction to address its deficiencies, which I will outline, and review modifications at a new or continued hearing. I concluded my P and Z testimony by saying all is well that ends well. After P and Z, BVNA was excited that common ground had been found. As noted in my testimony, there were some minor design details to address, but directionally, things looked very positive. However, in 2 short months, the Warm Springs streetscape design has taken a turn for the worse. I will summarize our 3 concerns and then provide some detail. Number 1, the streetscape design is inconsistent with staff exhibits and conditions in their January P&Z report, which BVNA supported. Not only did the plans not get revised to comply with staff comments, they were modified between the 2 hearings and are now inferior. Number 2, there is no provision for traffic calming or speed mitigation methods incorporated into this project. And 3, the application claims that satisfying the requirements cannot be achieved due to utility company requirements. For some perspective regarding the frontage improvements, the project was recommended to you by P&Z based on the submittals previously made by the applicants. These plans showed a continuous row of trees immediately adjacent to the street. Why is this important? As you know, for many years, BVNA has been working on ridding Warm Springs of its previous highway classification as an arterial. With the recent reclassification to collector by ACHD, speed mitigation can now be incorporated. The intent to incorporate speed mitigation on Warm Springs was recently reinforced by ACHD with its adoption of the Barber Valley Neighborhood Transportation Plan. I see David's put up the exhibit that we'd like to speak to. The applicant's prior plan, as approved by P&Z, was headed in the right direction, and BVNA endorsed a second row of trees, consistent with the staff's position. As a means of providing a comparison, I'll provide some comments regarding the exhibits up on the screen. There are a couple notable differences. On January's plan, there was a landscape buffer and street trees immediately adjacent to Warm Springs. On the current plat map, the same area is now noted as a drainage swale and contains no trees. The third image shows landscaping as required by the staff report with a double row of trees in a landscape buffer. The image on the far right is from David's staff report, which is what the plan to the left is based on. You'll quickly see that the current plan looks nothing like it. We have gone from a pleasing landscape buffer with trees to a borrow ditch, a ditch which we explicitly stated was not our goal in our P&Z testimony. The deficiencies are obvious. We are not getting what P&Z approved and what staff conditioned. While the PUD allows the applicant to resolve the frontage design up to council's review of the final map, which is too late in our opinion, revisions were made since the P&Z hearing that are contrary to staff's position and have been put in front of you tonight. Our second concern is the lack of speed mitigation or calming. Plans clearly show an absence of physical measures to mitigate speed. With the exception of a bit more turf out to the pavement and a curb, the proposed streetscape is no different than at the adjacent East Valley and River Heights subdivisions. No visual cues or physical design elements exist to slow speeds. Given we were trying to improve the status quo in order to mitigate speed, mimicking the existing conditions clearly does not meet expectations. This is about calming. We have emphasized the landscape as calming option because it is the least expensive option for the developer. However, landscaping is not the only way to achieve this. While I don't want to negotiate design solutions from the dais, there are other methods such as landscape medians, bulb outs, and altering the street alignment, to name a few. With the goal of calming as a requirement, we are disappointed and frustrated that the developer is presenting you with a plat tonight that has no calming provisions. Regarding our third concern, the applicant asserts that the landscaping cannot be incorporated adjacent to the street, despite showing it at the last hearing. They claim the utility companies prohibit landscaping adjacent to their lines. Given the quantity and locations of the trees in our city, we believe this to be unsubstantiated. Staff should be able to confirm if comments from any of the utility companies have been received claiming this is prohibitive as a part of their review. I question whether any due diligence has been done in the last year to determine the depth of the lines and if alternatives such as utility relocation, shallow rooted landscaping, boulders, and other features would satisfy the calming requirements were evaluated. Clearly, the trees were not an issue in January, given they were shown on the plans that P&Z approved. BVNA has been working tirelessly to be able to modify Warm Springs to a neighborhood street as opposed to a highway. This will allow our neighbors to safely walk, bike, recreate, and enjoy amenities that the highway previously prevented, or at a minimum strongly discouraged, as many of these amenities are on the west side of Warm Springs from our residents. Our successful efforts allowed this project to be improved. The proposed access to Warm Springs, made possible by these efforts, is a win for the future Woven residents and those in the adjacent East Valley subdivision that its absence would have impacted. This win should be accompanied by an effective calming design that is now achievable due to the Warm Springs reclassification. To completely ignore this opportunity, just months after ACHD's reclassification and the endorsement of calming in its neighborhood transportation plan, would be a travesty. The applicant is proposing annexation into the city as well as a rezone to allow the intended use. There is a cost for locating within the city limits, and in this case, we believe the cost is a streetscape design that accomplishes the neighborhood and agency goals and serves as a blueprint for future Warm Springs improvements. As I conclude, I'd like to quote from the conditions of approval. The main elements should include curb and gutter with drainage openings or 2-foot ribbon curb, street trees located close to Warm Springs within a landscape buffer for traffic calming, a 10-foot wide concrete detached sidewalk / pathway for walking and bicycling, native grasses / landscaping up to the pavement, and stormwater drainage. I urge you to look at the proposed plans and determine if this requirement has been met. I suspect you will determine it has not. If I'm correct, BVNA's recommendation is to either deny the subdivision map based on it not meeting the necessary criteria, or send it back to the developer for revisions to incorporate an acceptable solution and bring it back to you for final action. Thank you for your service to our city, neighborhoods, and residents, and thank you for weighing our concerns, which we believe are reasonable and appropriate and will serve to make our neighborhood a better place to live.
Thanks, Gary.
Thank you.
Questions?
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Thanks for coming tonight.
Sure.
You had mentioned some different traffic calming measures. One of the things that you specifically said was bulb outs, which, the extension of the sidewalk into the street. Are you talking about at the entryway, with the 10-foot path, is that where you're talking about wanting to see bulb outs, or is there specific areas in the map that you're calling that, or are you just talking about in general?
Yeah, Madam Mayor and council members, it was just a general statement about those being a bulb out in this case. Really, bulb outs I think are traditionally referred to at intersections,
Sure.
to your point. So really, the opportunity there would be to somehow change the alignment of the travel lanes, which in effect has a calming effect on drivers. So.
Great. And then, Madam Mayor, just a quick follow up there. You mentioned some other traffic calming measures, I think mostly related to where trees and kind of landscape and stuff, other areas are. I just wanted to give you an opportunity if there was any other specific things that you were asking for related to sidewalk or street design, to put those forward if you had any, or if it was just kind of looking at it in general again.
Yeah, we were not proposing a specific solution. I was just offering those as an opportunity to investigate, as an opportunity. Really what we're trying to do is achieve calming. How that's done, whether it's through landscaping, street realignments, a median out in the street, which would slightly affect travel lanes. Any of those could be used to achieve that end.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Further questions? I think you might have a couple, Gary.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you, Madam Mayor. Thanks for being here. You heard that I'm also concerned about the trees. It does, in looking at the existing utilities plan, it does look like that would be problematic. You're asking us to either hold it tonight or require some changes that would require the trees. I guess in my mind, I'm wondering if it would be, instead of requiring trees, if it would be acceptable in your mind to require that there be vertical elements in the landscape strip, that it not be used for a drainage swell, whether they be trees or grasses or something else, depending on what can be achieved based on the utility plans.
Yeah, I think we would be open to anything that, upon review, would as effectively calm traffic. Again, we were just offering the landscape option because it's probably the cheapest, but obviously there are some.
Yeah.
I was encouraged to hear Nicolette say that they are investigating the possibility of relocating utilities. Hope that would be a win-win if we could achieve it in that manner. So I think our biggest concern was just the kind of the flip-flop between the plan presented to P&Z, where the trees were clearly right at the street, and now essentially just a drainage swale, and it felt like we were going in the wrong direction. So
Understand. Sometimes you discover things late in the process that impacts your design. I'm guessing that's probably the case, but thanks.
Understood. Yeah, the other thing that I think is a challenge from time to time, and BB&A has had some recent experience with it, is when these resolutions are, when we're able to push them back to the final map stage. Sometimes the final map occurs after construction has commenced. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's too late to do anything. And that's frustrating. So in our opinion, the earlier we can address these things, the better. So that condition is already part of the PUD. So there's nothing we can do about it. But I think in the future going forward, if we can try to pull the resolution of these design matters forward a little bit, it'll be in everyone's best interest. Sure.
Further questions?
Thank
Right,
you very
thank you.
much.
Is there anyone from the public here to testify? How about online?
No, Madam Mayor.
All right, so nobody else is here to testify. I'm going to have the applicant come on up then. We'll move into rebuttals. We'll see if there are questions, additional questions for staff or the applicant at this time.
And Mayor, I do have a question.
Yes.
I'm wondering if you have, I know that you mentioned connection to the pathway behind the development. Do you have are there any illustrations anywhere, or can you describe what that connection looks like? Is it just the dirt path that connects to the dirt path?
Mayor, council members, can we get that PowerPoint back up? Thank you. I'm not sure if we have it as zoomed in as you probably would like, but let me check. You can kind of see here to our east where those homes abut our property line. It does basically trail into a dirt trail. It's more of a cow path at that point.
Perfect.
today.
Yeah. Thank you. And thanks for providing that connection to the trail. I think that's important.
Thank you. All right, if you like to go ahead with the rebuttal.
Mayor, council members, thank you for your time tonight. We appreciate the neighbors' robust discussion on these fine details. It's unfortunate that it's coming up at this moment and not earlier today when we could have looked into them in more details. In general, we are comfortable with the conditions as written and potentially a condition like Elaine mentioned. We, I guess, high level, want to remind everyone where we started. We began with our pre-application in February, where at that time it was made extremely clear to us that we were not going to be getting access to Warm Springs. So we have been able to design with that in mind. And then basically up until November of last year, we were informed that ACHD actually would consider the reclassification of Warm Springs, which greatly changes many factors on the site. So we are designing real time as real information continues to come out across the board. Just wanted to flip forward. Across the board, there are general corridor concerns along Warm Springs. And you can see that our property is not unlike any other properties in the adjacent area where there is not enough traffic calming to meet all of the neighborhood's ultimate desires. And so we feel strongly that traffic calming should be considered on a corridor-wide approach and not implemented inappropriately in random places, maybe where there's not as much effectivity as a corridor study would be able to achieve. In general, we did receive the exhibit that was shared by the Neighborhood Association from the staff report. We took that exhibit, and I wish it was as simple as designing a streetscape and street mix conceptually, but that exhibit does not match the existing conditions. There are different amounts of right-of-way and different amounts of required area per ACHD comments, and so we were not able to implement that exhibit the way it exactly is shown. And at that time, when we worked with city staff, they've been very agreeable to working through these items one by one. And we were informed that there was not a requirement for double trees between our new sidewalk and Warm Springs. So we only plan for one row of trees. I believe we can likely work into looking at the second row of trees if you want to mention that in the condition, but I can't guarantee you'll be able to fit all that in appropriately. There are requirements from the Idaho Power Corridor that you have to use class 1 trees, which are smaller, to remain out of the growth area of the tree, remain out of the power line corridor, so they don't start chopping them up in unattractive ways as they try to keep everyone safe from power lines. In general, we had the option between the two hearings to work through these items. We are doing it as fast as we possibly can. We had some feedback on the telecom facility, but not enough feedback on gas or power to make those types of changes. Trying to think if there's the reason why we submitted the alternate plan last minute is because we did switch from a swale, that open ditch that was discussed, into seepage beds where that actually gets stored underground and is not seen at the streetscape level. So we wanted everyone to know that we had a better plan for that, and we'll stand for any questions.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
I hope it's not an unfair question, but we're talking about vegetation of some sort in where the swale used to be, where now the seepage, this is the unfair part. Do you know if your engineer has any thoughts on that? I mean, it's a drainage issue apart from the utilities issue. And I wonder, what that input would be. If an appropriate answer might be, I don't know, I'm not the engineer, but I'm curious if you have any input.
Yeah, I mean, we're welcome to bring up, mayor and council members are welcome to bring up the engineer, but the seepage bed is no longer in that area. And so the trees would not impact any drainage issues in that area. We've moved that out of it, trying to free that up to work through these items.
Got it. Thank you.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Thank you. I don't know if a second row of trees is achievable either, but I do wonder if it's possible to do some larger columnar trees like a tulip tree or a hornbeam further closer to the roadway than what's shown and maybe out of the utility path of the overhead utilities, and would appreciate, investigating all of those kinds of issues. I don't know if a second row of class 1 trees further in makes a difference or not, but work with the neighborhood association, with our staff on trying to see if any of those would work, I think would really be helpful. I agree that you can't ask just one developer to do traffic calming on a whole corridor, but here's an opportunity to do some and set the stage for more of it to happen along the corridor. So whatever can be achieved here would be really helpful.
Mayor, council members, I'll just add, we do have staff level design review to come still. So maybe that's something we can work out more in design review.
Thank you. And I suspect I know our urban forester would be happy to work with you on the kind of tree that would work there.
Anything further? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Additional questions for staff before I close the hearing? All right, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
I move that we approve CAR 22-11, 6776 East Warm Springs Avenue, annexation of approximately 3.2 acres with an R2D DA zone.
Second, and I'll make an assumption that there will be an additional condition on the SUB. Were you thinking about doing that on?
You can make the motion if you want.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, we have a motion, a second on the CAR discussion.
Yes, Madam Mayor. This is only the rezone and annexation. It's a very appropriate rezone, very appropriate annexation. And I think that this will really bring this parcel in to allow it to be developed for the benefit of the neighborhood.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
I think that there are additional opportunities for traffic calming to be addressed in the design review process. And looking at the different neighborhoods that are in this area, this kind of completes a major section of sidewalk that people might be using to get all the way to the entrance of the Greenbelt, which I think is several hundred yards further west. And so when we're thinking about the crossings of the neighborhood streets getting into the neighborhoods, there's paint, there's raised crossings, there's a variety of different things that we see all along Warm Springs. And so I think that can be part of the discussion when we get into to that aspect. And so I think that this actually does do a fair amount of traffic calming though within the development, within the separated sidewalks, within trees that are inside the area, and increasing pedestrian activity along the sidewalks as well. I think will help with traffic calming, but I think that can continue to be part of the discussion. So I'm in support of the motion.
Madam Mayor, I'll be supporting this motion too. I just wanted to make a comment about the annexation because there was some discussion about, annexation coming with an obligation to bring something to the table. And I just wanted to register a little bit of disagreement with that. We've had a long history of difficulties with annexation in Boise, and I think creating the illusion that being annexed into our city is something that the city is then going to impose a bunch of costs on you for doing is not correct. We want people to be within our city limits. We want people to be within our sewer system. We want people to be participating within the tax structure of the city. And so my personal view, and I don't think it actually matters on this one, but my personal view is that, annexation is welcome, particularly in little piecemeal places like this where it makes a lot of sense. And it's not something that we're going, in my mind, we should impose, burdensome taxes for tax in the broad sense for somebody who wants to participate in joining the city of Boise.
All right, with that, I'll have the clerk call the roll.
Clegg,
Yes.
Halliburton,
Yes.
Willetts,
Yes.
Woodings,
Yes.
Agent,
Yes.
all in favor, motion carries.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I move approval of Woven subdivision SUB 22-35 Boise City preliminary plat at 6776 East Warm Springs Avenue, with one additional condition that before final plat, the developer bring forward a landscaping plan in the landscape area between the pathway and Warm Springs Avenue that has vertical elements that act as traffic calming.
Second.
We have a motion and a second discussion. All right, clerk, we call the roll.
Clegg,
Yes.
Halliburton,
Yes.
Willetts,
I think I saw yes. Yep.
Woodings,
Yes.
Agent,
Yes.
all in favor, motion carries.
Thank you. And with that,
Madam Mayor, I move we adjourn.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? We are adjourned. Thanks, everybody, for joining us tonight.